Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another Omega Insight. Tonight, I'd like to discuss the topic of inspection versus introspection. They seem quite similar in the words. The definition of inspection is to closely assess a condition or discover any shortcomings, examine something or someone to ensure official standards, let's say, whether it's you're inspecting our clothes ready to go to work, or the safety measures of our microwave oven, or etc. Introspection, quite similar. It's to examine and observe, but this is on one's own mental and emotional processes. So these are there's a quite clear distinction, though similar. Inspection is external. Introspection is internal. Naturally, that makes sense. Both of them are very valid and necessary for our lives. As I mentioned, inspection is more about safety. When we inspect something, we're looking for safety. When I first graduated college, I got this job. I took any job I could, and it was in a factory. And they produced plastic gears. And my job was to, as the gears came out 100 at a time, you had to pick up these gears and make sure that the teeth were clear and there wasn't any extra plastic sticking out. Now, this was an extremely monotonous job, and as a 21-year-old person, it was the most boring thing I've ever got myself into. I didn't last very long. I don't even know if I made it a month. And it got to the point where I was just mindlessly picking up the pieces and putting them, and I wasn't even looking anymore. I could give a care of whether or not the teeth were perfect or if there was a little plastic thing sticking out. I didn't care. It was really mind-numbing. And then a few years after that, I was driving, and I had a stick shift, and I was driving and accidentally hit the stick, and it slipped. And they call it the slipping gear, so it slipped into neutral. So even though I had the gas pressed, the engine was just revving and there was no movement happening. And I made the connection that gears are necessary. I know this sounds so easy to understand, but back then I didn't see the necessity. And once the gears are connected, then there's movement. If there's an issue with the gear, then there's not going to be a movement. And lo and behold, I realized, wow, my job was important. It was important to have somebody look at the gears. I know that's just a simple illustration, but it is quite true. If the gears grind down and they're not connecting well, the machine's not going to function properly as well. So history is filled with examples where inspection was either overlooked or not paid attention to, and catastrophe happened. I mean, I can go back to 1982. I remember when this happened. 1982, Flight 90 hit the 14th Street Bridge in D.C. and went into the Potomac River, killing, I think it was like 78 people died. And what they ended up upon inspection, what ended up happening is, as the plane was sitting, waiting to take off, there was a blizzard that came in, and even though they had been de-icing the planes, the pilots forgot to switch on the internal de-icing activation system as well, the emergency system as well. And so when the plane took off, it had too much weight on the wings, and that's why it crashed. If the pilots had just gone out and inspected the plane, they had sat on the runway, I think it was like 3 hours. If they had just gone out and inspected the plane, they would have noticed, no, we can't take off. There's too much ice on the wings. So there's an example where inspection was not done. Another example in 1986, obviously the Challenger, the O-ring. What happened is the temperatures had dropped down below zero, and nobody had inspected the elasticity or the congruency of the O-rings to make sure that it was going to be held. And naturally it didn't, and the Challenger blew up once it hit a certain temperature. In 2007, the Mississippi River Bridge collapsed. It was an 8-lane bridge, and they discovered that it was a design flaw, that somehow it was during rush hour traffic, and on this particular day there was a lot more cars on the bridge than expected, and the weight of it collapsed the bridge. That was due to a lack of inspection. Remember, you're looking for flaws, so inspection, they would have tested to see how much weight the bridge could actually hold. In 2010, there was the BP oil spill. Most of us know that one. And even though they had regular inspections on the gap to make sure that it was still connected, they didn't have regular inspections on the emergency system that would let you know something was wrong. So the emergency systems may have been going off saying, hey, something's wrong, but nobody knew because there wasn't a regular inspection on that. In 2017, there's a 24-story apartment building in London. Unfortunately, there was a fire that broke out. It was called the Grenfell fire. The Grenfell Tower. And in that one, 72 people died in the fire, and an additional 70 were injured with smoke inhalation and burns on their bodies. All of this was because there was no safety checks. They did remodeling. They brought it up to date. It was like a World War II building. Nobody did any safety checks. Even though they did the remodeling, the residents had complained before and after the remodeling that they didn't feel safe in the building, and the fire just spread like wildfire, unfortunately, killing all of those people. And of course, the last one I'm going to mention is, this is astonishing to me. In 2018, in upstate New York, there was a limo crash where the limo plowed into an intersection and 20 people died. And what they discovered is the limo itself failed an inspection earlier that month, and they were still driving it. And the driver did not have a limo license, so nobody inspected to make sure he was qualified to drive. So these are examples, just certain examples of how there's a lack of inspection and it causes injury. That's externally. Now, earlier I mentioned introspection is internal. So naturally, I think that if it's necessary for the external inspection, we should have the same importance placed upon internal inspection, which is called introspection. Now, our catastrophe may not be as great as 70 people dying and another 70 people injured, or, all the people who died, 78 people died on Flight 90. It may not have that ramification, but what it does is affect us. So the idea is to examine and observe internally my mental and emotional processes. That's what introspection does for us. If I don't check in every once in a while, I'm prone to emotional outbursts. People are prone to emotional outbursts if they don't check in, if they don't decompress. May is the month of mental health awareness, which is, hey, check off, how are you doing? Are we dealing with depression? Am I feeling stable? Am I feeling anxious? Any of those, are having suicidal thoughts? Any of those things need to be addressed. And that is through the process of introspection. History, again, is filled with great leaders who did spend time doing introspection. Buddha would spend hours contemplating. Jesus would spend hours praying. Lao Tse, hours meditating. Socrates did it with questioning. He would whittle down, whittle down, whittle down. That's the whole idea. Introspection helps me challenge my belief systems. It helps me challenge and what's working, what's not working. The idea is to start the day with gratitude and end the day with a review. So by ending my day with an evening review, I can review my day. How are my challenges? How am I feeling? Am I feeling stressed? Am I feeling good? Am I feeling, I didn't really handle that quite right? How could I rewrite it so if something else occurs, I'll be able to handle it in a fashion I feel more in alignment with me? All of this is due to introspection. Now, the thing that's the most important about this, we get so wrapped up in our busy lives, we forget to do it. We forget to take 5 minutes at the end of the day to sit down and think, how did I do today? 5 minutes to examine, how am I feeling right now? 5 minutes to say, okay, I'm feeling a little anxious. What can I do? So when we recognize something needs to be handled, obviously do it. When there's an inspection in the external world and we recognize, oh, this hasn't been handled, we get right on it. Well, the same can be true for internally. Once I do an introspection, I can recognize something needs to be adjusted and then make adjustments accordingly so that I am reaching the conditions I'm searching for. And this doesn't have to be so deep. Like I said, it could just be something as simple as, am I happy today? Did I spend any time working on being mindful throughout the day? Was I able to stay in the present moment? Was I able to break away and practice some breathing techniques? Is my stress level increased or decreased? Am I anxious, or has my anxiety dropped? How did I do on my interpersonal relationships? Do the people in my lives know that I love them today? Did I spend time checking in and really being present for the people in my life, whether it's relationships, personal relationships, work relationships, clients, anything at that? These are simple things for us to do on a daily basis. This is so healthy for us if we employ introspection in our lives. I think it's such a great topic, and that's why I wanted to bring it up. When I'm doing introspection, it's like I'm whittling away. When we're doing introspection, we're finding the things that we don't really like and we want to shift, and we're also discovering the things that, yeah, that's what I want to be like. And it helps us to fine-tune ourselves. You know, anybody who drives a car, you have to change the oil, you have to change the fluids, you have to inspect the brakes. Maintenance is required. Well, the same is true for me in life. There is a maintenance that is required, and that is through introspection. So thank you for joining me this evening. I truly hope you enjoyed my little topic on the distinction between inspection and introspection. I would challenge you to spend some time at the end of the day before you go to sleep, 5 minutes, just review your day and do some introspection on your life and the way you're living your life. I look forward to seeing you next week. Have a wonderful week, and as always, thank you for keeping the spirit of Omega alive. Bye now.